Smoke! There's smoke!
It's in the north wing, zone 2, in the lounge.
That's my area.
Okay, can you go check it out? I'll coordinate the response from here.
I think there's a fire in the storeroom.
What'd you see?
There's smoke coming out from under the door into the corridor.
I'm going to show you the 3 ways the fire can spread. Conduction is when fire spreads through direct contact. Before you know it, these boxes will catch fire because of the direct passage of heat energy through the steel door. Convection is the primary way a fire spreads throughout the building. Let's look at the screen and I'll show you how quickly this can happen. Heat from a fire spreads when hot air and smoke rise and flow under the ceiling of a room. The smoke and hot air currents will pass through any gaps or holes in the walls or ceiling into other parts of the building. This can ignite other combustible materials and cause the fire to spread. So radiation is the third and final way for a fire to spread. Radiated heat can go out in all directions unnoticed. Combustible materials close by will absorb the radiated heat before starting to smoulder and then burn. Fire is a chemical process of combustion that requires 4 elements. Fuel means any combustible material that will burn. To minimise fire risk, you need to make sure that fuel sources, things like flammable chemicals, are labelled and stored safely. Heat, enough to make the fuel burn. The temperature threshold for combustion depends on the type of material. Oxygen is needed to sustain combustion. The main source is the air around us, but you need to be aware of other sources of oxygen around the care home. All oxygen cylinders need to be turned off after use. If you find an oxygen cylinder that's still turned on, you need to tell your supervisor immediately. And the final element is a chemical chain reaction that provides the heat to maintain the fire. Fire can't start if any of these 4 essential elements is missing. Are there any questions? Yes.
Are many fires deliberately lit?
Yes, arson can be a cause of fire, and that's why we need to ensure that things like equipment, waste and chemicals, which are designated dangerous goods or hazardous materials, are labelled with the correct symbols and stored in approved designated areas. Doing this makes it harder for an arsonist to find them. It's important to be aware of what's happening in your local area. If fires have been deliberately lit in your area, this could indicate an increased risk to your premises. And when you're working on your shift, be vigilant and report any suspicious activity. And follow all of your policy and procedures when locking doors after hours. Bushfire can be a threat for care homes in bushfire zones. There needs to be regular maintenance to eliminate sources of fuel. Every home needs a bushfire evacuation plan because fuel sources and wind directions can change rapidly in a bushfire situation. If there's a fire in the area or a fire that has potential to move into the area, evacuation procedures need to be established in consultation with the emergency services.
There's a fire in the storeroom in the north wing, zone 2. Confirming there's a fire in the storeroom in the north wing, zone 2. Near the lounge room. There's residents in the lounge room.
Okay, I'll start the evacuation procedure. What do I do first?
The first thing you do when you discover a fire is to remain calm and alert, and then you apply the RACE principles. Remove, alert, confine, extinguish, or evacuate. RACE helps you remember the actions you need to take. The order may change depending on the circumstances. In some cases, it may be the extinguisher that's used first if it's safe to do so. This is the fire indicator panel. When the alarm initiates, it will identify a zone. This is the zone map. This will identify the location the alarm is initiated in. These are similar also to the evacuation diagrams that are throughout the building, which show the emergency exits. The panel is utilised by the designated emergency coordinator to see which sensors in the building have detected a fire and which zone or room it's burning in. The system is linked to fire rescue, but you'd always call 000 to advise fire rescue of the situation to ensure they've been alerted. The panel is linked to the alarm system. The alarm system needs to be checked monthly, either by an authorised contractor or qualified person. All organisations have a fire emergency evacuation plan. This forms part of your risk assessment. And as staff, you should know this from the first day you start work. We do mandatory training like this to ensure that you're up to date with that plan. You know what to do in case of a fire alarm and also what your responsibilities are. We reinforce this training with regular fire drills at different times to ensure that everybody has taken part, regardless of their shift time. Are there any questions? Yes.
How often should we be doing the fire drills?
At least once a year, maybe more, depending on the risk assessment. On top of that, all workers should attend at least one theory and one practical training exercise per year, and also a mock evacuation scenario. Emergency coordinators like Anita have extra specialised training that needs to be updated every 12 months. You should also be familiar with the residents' personalised evacuation plans, especially those with reduced capability or mobility who need additional assistance. Think about not having too many high dependency residents in the one area. This could be very challenging during an evacuation.
Fire rescue, please. Reporting a fire at Lightville Care Home. You may have been alerted through our alarm system, but I'm just making sure. The address is 35 Valley Road, Lightville. The fire's contained behind a storeroom door. It's in the north wing, zone 2. We're about to start an evacuation. Thank you. This is an evacuation order for the north wing, zone 2. For safety reasons, follow warden's directions and evacuate your area safely. Emergency services are on their way.
Yes.
I need you to oversee the evacuation in your area. Do you have personalised evacuation plans?
Yes. What do you want us to do?
Come with me to the lounge. We'll start evacuating the residents.
Why don't we just get the fire extinguisher and put it out?
Should we?
You should only attack a fire with a fire extinguisher in the following circumstances. If you've been able to identify the correct extinguisher to use in the fire, because different types of fires require different types of extinguishers. If it is safe to do so, the fire can be extinguished and you have a clear escape route behind you. Someone else knows where you are and what you're doing. And if you can keep low to the ground, because smoke will rise. Even if you have all the above, only attack the fire if you have the confidence to do so. Now, the reason why everyone needs to know how to use a fire extinguisher is because you never know who might be the first person to discover a fire. We use extinguishers to cool and smother a fire by restricting its oxygen supply. A fire blanket can also be used to smother a fire. And there are different types of extinguishers because different fires ignite, burn and react in different ways. Extinguishers are colour-coded according to their contents. This one is completely red, so it's a water extinguisher. The water extinguisher should not be used on a fire caused by electrical equipment. Can anyone tell me why?
Because water conducts electricity?
Correct. But also you should never use a water extinguisher on an oil fire because the oil will float to the top of the water and keep on burning as the water spreads. We use the acronym PASS in fire extinguisher training, which is pull, aim, squeeze and sweep. P is for pull the pin. The pin is there to stop any accidental discharge. Remember to keep your hands off the handle. And it's a good idea to test the extinguisher before approaching the fire. A is for aim low at the fuel source at the base of the fire. S is for squeeze the lever above the handle. You release the handle to stop the flow. And the final S is for sweep. Aim low at the base of the fire and sweep until all the flames are out. At this point, you need to watch for reignition, and if this happens, you need to repeat the process. As I mentioned, there's different colour-coded extinguishers for different types of fires. This water extinguisher is good for paper, textiles, wood, plastics and rubber. A dry chemical powder extinguisher has a white band. It's suitable for paper, textiles, wood, plastics, flammable liquids and combustible gases. The blue band means a foam extinguisher. It's suitable for paper, textiles, wood, most plastics, rubber and flammable liquids. For electrical fires and flammable liquids, use a carbon dioxide extinguisher with a black band. And this one with the oatmeal coloured band is a wet chemical extinguisher for paper, textiles, wood, most plastics, rubber and cooking oils or fats.
Why don't we just get a fire extinguisher and put it out?
No, we don't know how big it is or what kind of fire it is. If we open the door, we'll let more smoke out and we'll give oxygen to the fire. I really think we should just contain it.
Yeah, you're right. Hey?
I need your help evacuating residents.
There are 3 distinct stages of an evacuation. Stage 1 sees a person removed from immediate danger. Stage 2 involves removal to a safe area. That usually means through the nearest set of fire or smoke doors. And stage 3 is the complete evacuation of the building where everyone goes to an emergency assembly point.
The residents in the lounge are closest to the fire, so we need to get them out first. And then the ones in the bedroom. I have the personalised evacuation plans if you need to check anyone's needs. Can I have your attention? We appear to have a fire in the storeroom off the corridor. We want you to be safe, so we're going to evacuate the room.
What fire? I'm not going anywhere.
During an emergency, out of these 5 residents here, who would we evacuate first?
The person closest to the fire.
Correct. The person in most immediate danger should be evacuated first. From there is a sliding scale of evacuating people from the emergency situation based on their mobility capability. Starting off with ambulant, so the people who can walk, even with a walker, they can still move under their own power. Then we've got semi-ambulant, then we've got non-ambulant. So that's a person who's bedbound, and then we have resistive. Now, let's look at non-ambulant. We've got everybody out, we're coming back to non-ambulant. It's best to remove bedbound residents from their bed during an evacuation because moving the beds themselves can block evacuation exits. All right, so if I can have my 2 volunteers who's going to assist this resident get out of her bed. So we place the blanket on the ground first, ensuring there is enough blanket underneath the bed that we capture her body as she falls gently to the floor. Right, he's placed the pillow there because that's to reduce any injury because they've got frail bones and they're going to collide with the floor. Now you'll see they've moved the legs over. Once the legs go, the rest of the body follows. That's how easy it is and that's how gentle it is. Now we call the blanket drag. We're going to grab a corner each, then we drag out of the room and to the safe side of the fire doors.
What fire? I'm not going anywhere.
Leave Mara there for the moment. We'll get the ambulant residents out first.
I'll leave the door open so we can get everyone out.
Fire doors like this limit the supply of oxygen to a fire. It can prevent the spread of smoke and toxic gases for at least 30 minutes, sometimes longer. These doors must be able to be closed in an emergency. Doing something like this is an offence because it can stop the doors closing in an emergency. All staff must take responsibility to ensure nothing blocks the fire doors.
How did the doors work?
This one has an electromagnetic device that is linked to the home's fire alarm system. The device closes the door during a fire situation. The doors are part of a system of compartments designed to prevent the spread of fire and give people more time to escape. The compartments are divided by fire doors, walls and floors, which are resistant to fire and smoke.
So what do we do if we see smoke coming underneath the door?
Don't open the door, any door, not just the fire door. If smoke is coming out from under a door, it means the room is full of toxic smoke. Check the handle for heat, but if you open the door, you could cause the fire to spread.
Should I keep the door open so we can get everyone out?
No, you can't do that. Remember our training? Give me a hand instead.
first thing I want to say is how impressed I was with how everyone handled the situation. I think we learned the value of our training. Our application of the RACE principles worked very well, and we saw from first-hand experience that they're not necessarily applied in that order. Jane was able to raise the alert before our automatic system detected the fire.
Smoke! There's smoke!
We didn't assume the fire services knew about the fire. Fire rescue, please. Reporting a fire at Lightville Care Home. You all stopped what you were doing and removed those in immediate danger to a safe area. And we used our personalised evacuation plans to meet the individual needs of our residents. We worked within our smoke containment areas to evacuate residents to a safe area. Some of you thought about extinguishing the fire yourselves.
Why don't we just get a fire extinguisher and put it out?
No, we don't know how big it is or what kind of fire it is. If we open the door, we'll let more smoke out and we'll give oxygen to the fire.
But realised correctly that it wasn't safe to do so. You decided to contain the fire behind the storeroom door and waited for rescue services to extinguish it upon their arrival. The fire rescue investigators tell us the fire came from a spark between an extension lead and an overloaded power board. The connection was resting on a rag that still contained a flammable cleaning chemical residue, and a spark from the bad connection led to a fire starting. Nearby cardboard boxes quickly increased the size of the fire. So, how do we prevent something like this from happening again? We must continue our risk assessment procedures by taking another methodical look at the care home and the activities that we do. We need to minimise risk by identifying the things that could cause a fire and take steps to avoid them from coming together. As Fire Safety Officer, I'm responsible for the risk assessment, but we all play a role. It's the law that all workers take reasonable care to minimise or reduce risk of injury to themselves or others.
Good housekeeping minimises the risk of fire. Sometimes in areas that are out of view of the public, they store mattresses and unused equipment which can provide a fuel source for fire and also block fire exits. In this room it's pretty tidy, but there are a few risks. Can anyone identify some of the risks in this room?
The power board's overloaded.
Absolutely overloaded, and look just below it. So imagine if this sparks or the plastic melts, it's going to drip straight into that bucket and start that garbage fire there as well. Is there any other risk anyone can see?
The candle?
Yes, the candle. Now, in most aged care homes, they are banned, including this one. And also the proximity to the curtains could also start a fire in that as well. Okay guys, I can see some do's and don'ts here. Good to see easy access to the extinguisher and the fire blanket. So, see the sandwich maker? Yeah, far too close to the sink. That oil should not be left anywhere near the gas cookers when they're on. Things like the tea towel and the oil should not be anywhere near an open flame. And it may sound really obvious, but if you are cooking, such as frying, and leave the area, you should not leave it unattended. Also know where your gas valves are. In fact, be aware of your gas, electrical and water mains shut-off points. And that way you can direct the emergency services to them, or if safe to do so, shut them down yourselves in case of an emergency. It's important to know that cigarette butts, matches and lighters are a major source of fire, and that residents and staff should only smoke in designated areas. Residents who smoke should also have a risk assessment to determine what support they need to stay safe. Can anyone identify any potential fire hazards here?
The cords on the desk, another overloaded power board.
Yeah, and look how close the heater is to the waste paper bin. Anything else?
The mug on the photocopier?
No. Water and electricity doesn't mix. Law injuries are always one of the greatest fire risks for care homes, and combustible items should also not be stored here. One of the best safety precautions you can do in laundries is to ensure the lint trays are clean. Okay, just like this one, nothing here. Always be mindful about what you put in the dryers. Things like mop heads and rags can have a chemical residue on them. That means they can spontaneously combust due to the heat. So always review the manufacturer's recommendations so you don't overload the dryer, and also in regards to servicing. The ironing equipment should also be regularly maintained and used as per the manufacturer's instructions. As staff, you all have a duty of care to keep an eye out for fire risk. If you see a risk, either minimise or eliminate that risk yourself or report it to your supervisor. It's your responsibility to do what you can to reduce the risk of injury or harm to yourself and others. Remember, anything that burns is fuel for a fire. What can you see around you now?